Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a question that really shapes every moment of our lives. Why do we believe the things we do, and maybe more fundamentally, how do our very thoughts sculpt who we become?
It's such a core human experience, isn't it?
Huh.
And it's often far more intricate than just, facts or logic.
Right.
We'll be exploring how our minds actually construct reality, the subtle power of group influence, and also why we often cling so tightly to our ideas, sometimes even when faced with pretty strong contradictory evidence.
And we've got a fantastic stack of sources to guide us today. We're drawing insights from the psychology behind you become what you think, and also the psychology of belief, why we cling to what we think is true.
Yeah, two really insightful pieces. Our mission for you today really is to go beyond just the surface level.
Hmm.
We want to help uncover the profound psychological and even neuroscientific currents beneath belief. The goal is for you to emerge with a richer, maybe more nuanced understanding of yourself and, well, the complex world around all of us.
Okay, let's start by pulling on this core thread then. This idea that our thoughts, whether they're fueled by love, hate, or, that whole rich tapestry of human emotion, aren't just fleeting feelings.
No, not at all.
They're literally the building blocks of our identity. And this isn't just some philosophical musing, is it? There's actual psychology and neuroscience backing this up pretty concretely.
Oh, absolutely. What's truly illuminating here is how directly our thoughts don't just affect our brain, but they actively mold its very structure.
Mold it.
Yeah, and by extension, our perception of the world, we can see this dynamic playing out really vividly in the contrasting forces of, say, love and hate.
Okay.
So when we genuinely love something, could be a person, a skill, an abstract idea, it activates the brain's reward
Or
system.
the pleasure centers.
Exactly. It floods us with dopamine, which drives motivation and joy, and it also releases oxytocin, fostering those deep bonds and trust. It's like a powerful neurochemical go-for-it signal.
Encouraging investment.
Precisely. Encouraging us to invest time and energy. Think about someone maybe consumed by their passion for art.
Okay.
They dedicate countless hours to perfecting their craft,
Right.
right? And that consistent focus, it doesn't just sharpen their skill, it fundamentally rewires their brain through something called neuroplasticity.
Ah, neuroplasticity. I've heard that term.
It's key here. Their very neural pathways adapt, intertwining their identity with their artistic pursuit. They literally transform into the artist they aspire to be, neurologically speaking.
Wow. Okay, so that's the constructive side with love. What about the flip side, hate?
Well, hate, on the other hand, often rooted in fear or some kind of perceived threat, sends our brain into a different but equally transformative mode.
Yeah.
It hyperactivates the amygdala,
The fear center.
yeah, our brain's ancient alarm system for emotion and threat.
Yeah.
But it also engages regions tied to aggression and decision-making, like the prefrontal cortex and the insula.
So a different network lights up.
A different but related network. And unlike the kind of expansive growth spurred by love, hate often creates this sort of constrictive, negative feedback loop.
Okay.
And here's a truly counterintuitive twist. This intense fixation on what we despise can, over time, lead to an unintended mimicry.
Mimicry. How so?
Well, Sigmund Freud called this reaction formation. He suggested that our most vehement criticisms of, say, an ideology or a person might, at an unconscious level, mask an almost uncanny identification with some of their very characteristics.
Whoa. So you become like what you hate.
It's like we become a distorted reflection of what we fight against. It's a complex idea, but psychologically powerful.
That is. Yeah, that's powerful and a bit unsettling. So the brain isn't just like passively reacting to these intense emotions, it's physically adapting and changing based on them.
Precisely. It's not just recording feelings, it's literally changing its architecture. The neurobiology of love involves robust activation of our reward pathways.
Dopamine again.
Dopamine, especially in the ventral tegmental area. Repeated focus on these positive emotions strengthens specific synaptic connections, reinforcing memories and behaviors tied to good experiences. These patterns can become deeply ingrained, almost hardwired.
Making passions part of our identity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, for hate, you see that amygdala going into overdrive,
Right.
preparing the body for fight or flight.
Makes sense.
But here's what's truly astonishing and maybe a bit disturbing.
Mm.
Both extreme love and extreme hate activate surprisingly similar areas of the brain.
Really? The same areas?
Some key ones, yeah,
Yeah.
including the putamen and the insula. This suggests there might be a shared neural circuit for processing intense emotion, whether it feels good or bad,
Wow, okay.
and prolonged immersion in hateful thoughts. That can lead to what psychologists call cognitive rigidity,
Meaning,
meaning our brains become less flexible, more prone to bias processing, and significantly less receptive to any information that challenges our entrenched views. It sort of locks you in.
okay, beyond these fascinating, neurobiological shifts, how do these mental processes actually translate into our everyday behavior, our perceptions?
Yeah, that's the crucial link, isn't it? How thoughts become actions. This brings us to how our internal states directly architect our external realities. Consider cognitive dissonance.
Right, I've heard of that. Festinger.
That's the one, Leon Festinger. Think of it as that uncomfortable mental squirm you get when your beliefs clash with your actions, or when two of your core beliefs are just at odds.
Like believing you're honest, but then telling a lie.
Exactly. Or someone who prides themselves on being kind, but finds themselves constantly thinking hateful thoughts about a group. That creates profound internal tension.
So how do we resolve it?
Well, often, to resolve this discomfort, people might rationalize their hatred. Maybe they dehumanize the target, which then, of course, profoundly impacts their subsequent actions and even how they see themselves.
It changes their identity to match the behavior.
It can, yeah. Then there's the powerful self-fulfilling prophecy.
Where believing makes it so.
Essentially, yes. Our beliefs create expectations, and those expectations subtly, or sometimes not so subtly, guide our actions in a way that makes the initial belief come true. If you deeply believe you're just not going to succeed at something,
You might sabotage yourself.
you might unconsciously overlook opportunities, put in less effort, maybe misinterpret neutral feedback as negative, effectively guaranteeing that failure you expected.
And you mentioned mirror neurons, too.
Right, mirror neurons. These fascinating cells tucked away in our premotor cortex, they fire not only when we do something, but also when we simply observe someone else doing it.
Like yawning when someone else yawns.
That's a simple example, yeah. But this mechanism is fundamental to empathy, to learning through imitation. It helps explain how our social environments and the people in them can subtly, almost invisibly, mold our characteristics.
Pulling us towards connection or
Yeah.
towards animosity.
Exactly, depending on what we're consistently observing and maybe mirroring.
And it's truly wild to think how deeply our identity, even unconsciously, seeks to mirror itself. Like in the phenomenon of pet owners resembling their pets. It sounds funny, but
Oh, it's a great real-world illustration. It absolutely is. It's not just a quirky observation,
so there's real psychology there.
definitely. From a psychological perspective, there's something called the mere exposure effect,
Familiarity breeds liking.
basically, yeah. Robert Zejongt identified this. It suggests we unconsciously gravitate towards, or maybe even choose, pets that share subtle similarities with ourselves, just because they feel familiar.
Interesting.
Plus, pets often become genuine extensions of an owner's self-concept and identity. They serve as a living reflection, reinforcing who the owner believes they are.
Like an accessory that reflects your style, but alive?
Sort of, but deeper, I think. And it goes beyond just psychology. There are biological and behavioral links, too. Shared environments often lead to similar habits.
Like an active owner having an active dog.
Or maybe a less active owner and their dog, both gaining a bit of weight together. And there's also an element of imitative bonding. Pets are highly attuned. They can mimic their owner's expressions or moods, which deepens the attachment and, yeah, it sometimes creates that uncanny resemblance.
So whether we're talking profound emotions like love and hate, or even, our relationship with our dog, it seems clear. Our personal thoughts, our inner narratives, they really are at the core of constructing who we are.
Absolutely. Now, let's maybe pivot to the other side of this coin. Let's try to understand why we so stubbornly cling to certain beliefs, even when there's compelling evidence suggesting we maybe should reconsider.
Right, because that happens all the time.
It does. And you see, it's frequently not about raw intelligence or level of education. It often taps into something much deeper. Our emotions, our need for belonging, our fundamental desire for certainty, in what feels like a pretty messy world.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how our brains, in their quest for that certainty, can sometimes play tricks on us, leading us to think we understand way more than we actually do. How does that work?
That's a crucial point. We might like to imagine our beliefs are purely logical, built on solid facts.
How do so?
But much of what we perceive as knowledge is, well, often an illusion. The Dunning-Kruger effect illustrates this so vividly.
Ah, yes, the less you know, the more you think you know.
In a nutshell, yes. Individuals with the least competence in a specific area tend to wildly overestimate their understanding, whereas genuine experts, paradoxically, are often acutely aware of the vastness of what they don't know.
Humility comes with expertise.
Often, yes. Our brains are efficiency machines, constantly using mental shortcuts or heuristics. These shortcuts, while useful, can lead us to confidently believe we know more than we really do.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine maybe a student armed with a few catchy sound bites from social media, confidently challenging a really well-established scientific theory. They might genuinely believe they've found some huge flaw that entire fields have missed. That's Dunning-Kruger in action.
Okay. And what about confirmation bias? I feel like I hear that one a lot.
Oh, confirmation bias is huge. It's our brain's natural tendency to actively seek out, interpret, and remember information that confirms what we already believe.
And ignore the rest.
Pretty much. We effortlessly dismiss or just don't even notice information that contradicts our views. Think about two people researching, say, a charged political topic online.
Okay.
One types why candidate A is great, the other types why candidate A is terrible. They will end up in completely different corners of the internet, these sort of echo chambers, each reinforcing their starting belief, often totally unaware of the evidence the other person is seeing.
That makes sense. But what about when you do see contradictory evidence?
Well, that's where it gets even more interesting and, frankly, a bit frustrating. There's something called the backfire effect.
Backfire, meaning it makes things worse.
Often, yes. This phenomenon shows that when we're confronted with evidence that directly challenges a deeply held belief, instead of reconsidering, we often double down. We actually strengthen our original conviction.
Wait, really? Evidence against makes you believe more.
It can, yes. In one famous study, researchers gave groups who supported and opposed capital punishment the exact same studies on its effectiveness. What happened?
They changed their minds.
Nope. Both sides became even more entrenched in their original views. They found ways to dismiss the contradictory evidence as flawed or biased.
Wow.
This is why trying to argue someone out of a deeply rooted belief using just more facts can feel like, hitting your head against a wall. The more evidence you throw at them, the more fiercely they might defend their position.
So if facts alone often fall short, what else is exerting such a powerful pull on our beliefs? It sounds like there's a big social component here.
You've absolutely hit on something fundamental. Belief doesn't just materialize out of thin air, right? It flourishes within social environments. And it's largely fueled by our innate, very human need for belonging.
We want to fit in.
Deeply. Social identity theory, which was pioneered by Tocqueville and Turner, posits that a really significant portion of our self-worth comes from the groups we identify with.
Or tribes, so to speak.
Exactly. Once we commit to a group, whether it's a sports team, a political party, a hobby group, whatever, we develop this powerful psychological incentive to champion and defend its core beliefs. Even if, on a purely logical level, they might seem a bit questionable from the outside.
Can you give an example?
Sure, think about maybe a military ritual or a corporate tradition that has absolutely no practical function anymore.
Okay.
But it becomes utterly unthinkable to question it. Why? Because doing so would feel like a profound betrayal of the group, a rejection of that shared identity.
It's about loyalty, not logic.
In many cases, yes. This same dynamic helps explain how something truly awful, like the Salem witch trials, a mass delusion, could take such a horrifying hold. Questioning the prevailing belief wasn't just about seeking truth. It felt like tearing at the very fabric of the entire social order.
That's terrifying.
It is. And the famous Asch conformity